right, so the next speaker is very near and dear to my heart. I mean, I knew him since he was. I mean, we trained karate together. We would fight and spar all the time. We've also been trainers together and worked out together. So I consider him family. He has been able to achieve some great things within the past, I don't know, 6-7 years. He's just an outstanding individual, super humble. I can't speak enough about him. And then I do want to say something about him, because even with whether it's like we both were facing ups and downs, like he was always someone who brought energy and brought me up from my low energy too, right? And so he's just been a brother to me, and to see his growth and to see what he's been able to do, just not only as an entrepreneur and investor, but as a person and growth as a person, that's much more important. And our relationship means so much to me. And without further ado, Mr. Joseph Villagracia, aka GOAT, aka investor, aka entrepreneur, aka Golden State Enterprise.
So, I'm going to be talking about how to grow your wealth, but before I do, I say thank you to Justin for hosting Wealth in Waves. So, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but he's hosted 5 events so far, and I remember when we were trainers in the sauna, and he was taking his financial education classes, and then here's one thing that he always told me, and I'm glad that it manifested into reality, which is he wants to serve other people. He wants to really increase financial literacy, increase financial education. So the part that I hope you don't mind me sharing is that every event that he hosts, he actually goes out of pocket. So let's give a round of applause to Justin first. So, I'm a Pinoy immigrant, and I went from 0 to millionaire at 27 years old. And because of that, I've been able to do really cool things, in my opinion. Such as recently this year, this is my beautiful parents. A lot of things I do is for them. I was able to pay for an all-expense trip to Hawaii, and we stayed at Ritz-Carlton. We did all the excursions. I surprised my mom with a brand new car. She totaled her car. Well, my brother totaled her car. And then she gave her car to my brother. And then I was like, let me buy my mom a car, because now she doesn't have nothing to drive. I have 6 properties in the Philippines. Right over here. Here's all the keys to them. Buy my parents a house. And recently, I'm really, really proud of this. This is my sister, who I employed, and also my mom and all my family members. And I remember my mom was texting me last month, and my mom doesn't like to tell you what she wants. She'll just give you clues. So she texted me this flights to Philippines, and she was like, "Hey, these dates look so fun." And I was like, "All right, Mom, I think I get it. You want me to pay for these flights? I got you." And then so now they're in Philippines with my family. I've been able to grow a portfolio, my crypto portfolio to 3.4 million. And I'm only showing my income and stuff like this because growing up, when it comes to trying to get wealth, I just realized there's a lot of charlatans in this space and a lot of people who just don't walk the walk. So I'm showing this just to be completely transparent, because the people that I wanted to learn from is the people that did what I wanted to do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Cool. Now, when it comes to wealth, to me, it's not only money. To me, wealth is freedom, security, and then giving back to those that matter the most. And then to me, it's my family. Anybody resonate with that?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. You guys are my people. So this is going to be my presentation, is how dad is the shortcut to growing your wealth. Who's a dad here? Cool. You guys can teach this to your kids. So the goal for today is showing you the dad framework I created that transformed my life. Second thing is give you questions to ponder on. And then the third thing is just doing my best to condense years of sharing what I learned about wealth in the next 30 minutes or so. And I asked for 2 things. 2 things only. Not 1, but 2. Is take notes. So whenever I was going to conferences like this, I was a massive note taker. And one speaker, he said, and I'll never forget, he said, note takers are money makers. So the reason why I started taking notes since 2016, they all come down into where I'm at today. So I highly encourage it, but also to participate, because I'm more of an engaging person. And by participation, I mean like give me some head nods, raise some hands, say like, yeah, that makes sense, make some noise, like, you know, like, I don't like this lecture. I don't like lecture environment, all right? So before I begin with the DAD framework and how it changed my life, let me start off with a quick story. So this is me. I graduated ACHS. I graduated class of 2015. And what is the next step after high school?
College.
College, correct. And what does everybody, family, friends, society tell you to do afterwards? Work. You go to college and you work, exactly. So my entire knowledge of wealth at the time was get a degree, to get a job, or retire from that job. Does that resonate with anybody here? That was my entire financial education. And if you're Filipino, it's Any nurses in here? Any Filipino nurses? No, all right, cool. We didn't follow the Filipino prophecy. But yeah, so that's what I did. So after high school, I graduated because this was the thing to do. I went to college and then I worked at Chipotle. So this is me and Chipotle. But this is when I started getting really, really confused about life. And the reason being was because there's reality versus society. So society was telling me to get a job. Society was telling me to get a good paying job. Society was telling me that this was the path to retire. But when I was working at Chipotle, this is what I noticed when I was a cashier register. Guac is extra, by the way, if you didn't know, in Chipotle. So one thing that they had in common was the person to my left, like all my coworkers when I got to know them, the person to my right, the person behind me, master's degree in psychology, bachelor's degree, AA associates. That was the only thing I didn't have that they had. But guess one thing that we had in common? We got paid $11 an hour. Do you see how there's a disconnect and it starts not to make sense? So I was very conflicted. And around this time, this is when I started asking myself questions. I'm like, man, is this the path? Who's defining what I should do in life or wealth or the path? Society or myself? Do I want to keep working at Chipotle? I hate it here. And then I realized the key thing when I started asking myself questions is that this was the first question I actually want you to ponder on today. It's very important because everything will tie in at the end. Is what does wealth look like to you? So I'm glad that Justin and I'm glad that Joe, they were speaking that everybody's goals are different. So I'm not going to be here to say like, this is how you grow wealth or this is how you grow wealth because everybody's circumstances is different. Agreed?
Yeah.
Perfect. So before I do, all right, so start pondering on this because where I'm going to show you is the Warren Buffett exercise that gave me clarity on how I know what I truly want. But before I do, just ponder on it now and just start jotting down ideas mentally or on your laptops, on your notepads. My answer at the time was what wealth didn't look like that, so that's what I was asking myself. And it was not working at Chipotle. I was like, this is not wealth. I'm working $11 an hour. I remember my first paycheck. This is a little side story. I remember my first paycheck because we needed to get black shoes. And I remember I was in Walmart because I was like, I feel like Walmart has cheap shoes. And then I started looking at the price tags, and it was just like $60, $80, $40. And I started to like understand reality. I'm like, you're telling me this shoes on the shelves is 4 to 6 hours of my life? 4 to 6 hours of my life for these pairs of shoes. It don't make sense. Make it make sense. So, luckily one day, I reconnected with an old friend. So I used to do Muay Thai. This is Alec right over here. He really transformed my life when I was going through a very confused time. So one thing that when I reconnected with him, I noticed that he went from a customer service rep to all the way to a COO. He was traveling the world and he was like making 6+ figures. And to me at the time, he was the only person I knew with the level of success that I admired, right? Like it's a very different experience. Like, does anybody here have like a friend or somebody they know that just like achieved massive success? You're like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah? Yeah, and it was inspiring. And then I remember we went out to go eat dinner and then I was just venting. I was telling him, I was like, dude, I'm feeling kind of depressed. I'm feeling kind of confused. Society's telling me to do this, but reality is showing me that. Like, what do I do? And he was like, bro, I got you. I was like, take this program. And I was like, what is it? He was like, bro, trust me. Take this program. And what I didn't know was that program was my introduction to personal development. So that program, it was teaching me things that I've never learned, right? So this is when I started journaling. This is when I started reading books. And it was the first time I started learning about, and I'll just give you some of my favorite like lessons I've learned along the years. is the first step towards self-improvement is through self-awareness. You can't improve what you don't know. Formal education will make you a living, which is true, right? Reality. But self-education will make you a fortune. In order to get what you want, you have to deserve what you want. The world's not a crazy enough place to reward a whole bunch of undeserving people. Take responsibility for your actions and never play victim. Does this sound kind of like common sense, by the way? Yeah? This was not common sense to me. I did not learn this at all. Well, so let's keep going. Everybody has the same 24 hours a day. It's what we do with them that makes us different. When your priorities are clear, making decisions becomes easier. So much depends on your reputation guarded with your life. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. There's no change without sacrifice. There's 3 types of people in the world: people that make things happen, people that watch things happen, and people that wondered what happened. You never want to be the person that wondered what happened, right? And then here's the one that is really meaningful to me. Is the biggest risk in life is not getting what you want.
For the people in the back.
Again, these were mind-blowing lessons to me. I've never learned any of these things. I came from a low-income household growing up. My dad worked 2 jobs. Anybody make sacrifices like that for their family, or have parents that sacrifice so much time? Yeah, those were my parents. All my education was get a degree or become a nurse. That's it. There you go. There's my education. But the thing was, because of that program, yeah, this is me.
Remember that one?
Fun fact, my accountant's here right now. She was one of my first personal training clients. I don't know why she thought this guy knew what he was doing, but anyway.
It's amazing even then.
Anyways, because of that program, I started looking for alternative jobs, right? I quit Chipotle, and then I became a personal trainer, and that's when me and Justin reconnected. I started spending my time reading, and then seeing how I can improve as an individual. I started spending my money on books and courses, something I've never done before. I started changing my environments. I started putting myself in the rooms where I was the youngest, dumbest, and poorest. And then I started making friends with people more successful than I was. My boss, Reggie, and my accountant, Natalie. And then I started to see my life improve. So everything I was learning from my personal development journey, it was matching reality. Like, for example, in order to get what you want, you have to deserve it. I'm like, okay, I need to deserve it. You are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. I'm starting to hang out with these people, and I'm like, oh man, my life's improving, right? And here's the thing. Here's a key thing. All my personal resources were going to what I believe was my definition of wealth, which is the very key thing. And everything changed when I dropped out of college. So continuing the story, this is the time I was confused, blah, 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 blah. I was still going to college at the time, by the way. All right, so Reggie, who was my boss at the time, hit this stud right over here. So he asked me when I was like one day in personal training, he was like, hey man, do you want to go to a Les Brown conference? Does anybody know Les Brown? Cool, my people, cool. So he is a motivational legend like his bio says. And the problem with the Les Brown conference was that I had college classes at the time, because again, I'm going to college at this time. But I was like, you know what? I made a decision that I'm gonna skip my classes and I'm gonna drive to Sac State where Les Brown was speaking. And then so that's what I did. Now, what's really cool was when I drove to Sac State, I went to the conference area because he just gave me an address, and I was like, all right, cool. So I just showed up. And then I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going, but what's really cool was that Reggie, he texted me, he was like, hey man, Rodney's trying to find you, who is his brother. And then Rodney, he comes in the corner where I'm just sitting down, he's like, Joe, let's go. And then so I'm following him, and he's walking really fast, there's a girl with a clipboard that looks really important, and then next thing you know, they take me to the backstage with Les Brown. Now I'll tell you what, it's really interesting. One thing that I learned is that successful people really want people who, they will help people who really want to help themselves. I've noticed the most successful people in my life, they're the most generous. It's really interesting. And what was really cool is when we walked into that room, we got into this board like that. Those are his sons, that's Rodney, that's his assistant. And then he was like, hey, I have time before my presentation in Sac State. I'm going to allow everybody here to ask me one question. And then so we go in a circle, and I'm like the 5th person up. And I'm just like, man, what question am I going to ask? Like, this is it's the first time with a very successful person, you know? And then so first person goes, beautiful answer. Second person goes, he answers beautifully. Third person, boom. Fourth person, and then my heart's beating when it comes to me. And I was like, you know what? Let me just simplify stuff. Let me make it very easy. let me just explain my situation of what I'm feeling and going through in college, and let me just lay it out and just, what's your take on college, Les? And then he looks at me, because, you know, I'm very confused. I'm like, people are telling me get a degree, get a good paying job. People are defining this is the wealth, this is the path. And I was like, I want to make a lot of money like you, because like he bought his mom a house and things like that. I was like, what do I do? And he looked at me and said, young man, I got paid $50,000 not too long ago from South Africa. And I got paid $250,000 speaking somewhere else. People don't pay you for a degree you have on the wall. People pay you for the value you bring to yourself and you bring to others.
Mm.
And at that point, I was like, oh, my job. Now I understand why you're a motivational speaker. So at that point, all the decisions that I've been making has been resulting to doing what I defined as wealth at the time. So for me, wealth to me was learning from people who did the thing that I wanted to do. Wealth to me was retiring my parents. Wealth to me was paying for my parents' bills. Like a lot of things is my parents. By the way, parents, your kids are watching, and your kids, shower them with love, because I was a very, very bad kid when I was younger, but it ended up paying off because I remembered all the times my mom prayed for me. My dad was working 2 jobs. So a lot of things I do now is to give back to them, right? So I was making a lot of decisions to make sure that this is my definition of wealth. I'm going to keep orientating my behavior to these specific things. And then so that's what I did. And then so back to college, right? I had the ultimate decision at the end of it all. Because I started skipping college classes to, you know, invest in personal development. I started surrounding myself with better people and all that stuff. And then I remember anybody, does this road look familiar to anybody? This is where like Scandia is. And then, yeah. And I remember I was driving, this one I lived at Vallejo at the time. I was driving and I was like, all right, either I could just go back to college because I still had class that day and continue to kind of like put myself in a situation that I don't really want to be in, what society put me in, or I could go straight into the path that I feel that's right for me. And what do you guys think I did? I said, I'm going straight. That's exactly what I did. So, all right. The first thing, when it comes to D.A.D, I would say write this down. Make sure I don't miss anything. Perfect. So D in D.A.D, it stands for define. So again, I said, this is the question. What does wealth mean to you? And what does it look like? And the reason why this, to me, is like super important is because wealth is personal. Right. Nobody wins a race they don't want to be in. For me, going to college, getting a degree, get a good paying job, I could have did that. And on the outside, I could have looked successful. But on the inside, would I have been? Absolutely not. And who matters the most? You feeling like your success and you hitting your metrics, or society? It's you. So the first thing in D.A.D, it stands for define. Define what it looks like for you. And then we're going to get into some cool stuff, and I really want some engagement on the next one. My boy Warren. All right, cool. So this was the exercise that I did that completely changed my life and gave me absolute clarity. And if you want a shortcut to growing your wealth, you want to make sure you're very clear where the end destination is. Does that make sense? Yes. Perfect. So this is his pilot, and this is Warren. So his pilot, he asked Warren Buffett, he was like, hey, how do I accomplish like major goals in my life? Like, what do I do? And then Warren Buffett, what he said is, grab a piece of paper and grab a pen, which everybody has here today. And he said, list out 20 things that defines wealth for you. We'll do wealth because this is the conversation. He says, write down 20 things, right? There you go. And then after he writes 20 of those things, that's what the pilot did. He gave it back to Warren. And then Warren said, all right, cool. Now I want you to circle the top 3. Mm-hmm. And then so that's what the pilot did. He circled the top 3. He said, okay, this is the most important to me. This is the most important to me. This is the most important to me. And he was like, all right, perfect. Everything that you didn't circle is eliminated. Crazy, right? Oh, you eliminate everything. And the reason being is because your attention gets split. One book I read is called The One Thing. Anybody read it before? Gary Kellerman? All right, cool. Perfect. Yeah. So The One Thing. And the quote in the beginning of the book says, the man that catches 2 rabbits ends up catching none. So it was my first exercise that I've done where I've really truly known what the priorities were for me. Because nobody knows what I want in life. I don't know what you guys want in life, but you do. And the best way for you to understand that is you ask yourself questions. right? And that's what I'm imploring for you today. So after you circle the top 3, this is what I do to really like magnify it. Is out of those top 3, I circle the top 1. And that's really difficult because you're just like, all right, now you know the exact endpoint. Now it's up to you to move to do the second thing, which I'm going to get to right now. So how to define what you want, take a picture of it, or ask me later, I can send you the slides. Brain dump what wealth means to you. Write down 20 things you want to accomplish related to what you define as wealth. Wealth to me was not getting to get a degree or get a good paying job. That's not what I defined as wealth. You circle the top 3 that matters most to you, and you cut everything else that are not those top 3. You circle the one that matters the most, and then at that point you move on to step number 2, which is A. A stands for audit your resources. So my journey, one thing that I believe that was allowing me to constantly level up was the fact that all my time, all my attention, all my money, all my energy, all my emotions, all my relationships, it was related to getting the things that mattered most. And at this time, I remember my top 3 till this day. My top 3 was 1, learning skills, because I've learned that skills pay the bills, right? The second was being the youngest, dumbest, and poorest in the room. That was the second one. And the third one was become the first millionaire in my family. That was, to me, that was just like the top 3, right? And then ever since 2016, that's all I did, right? And I audited my resources. So now we're going to go into the audit. So I came up with this acronym. It's called TMERS. You want to tame your resources. The first 4 is, it really is basic. You really want to master this. And then the ERRS, this is not a lot of people talk about this when it comes to growing your wealth. These are important too. So we'll go it one by one, and you guys can shout out the answers. This is regarding like personal resource. So I'll give a hint to just kind of like make you guys learn. So T, everybody has 24 hours in a day. What's that called? Time. Perfect. Time. Perfect. Yeah, you guys are smart. All right, cool. So time, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, so we'll kind of breeze through that. A, what do you guys think A stands for?
Action.
What was that?
Attention.
Perfect, yes. So this is one thing I really like about, when I heard this quote, I was like, oh, it just makes a lot of sense. It's like, anybody here have social media? Yes? Cool. People think social media is free. It isn't, because you pay with your time. Mm-hmm. You pay with your attention. And the attention that you give them is what they monetize. Right? So it ain't free. M, I think everybody knows what this is. Money, correct. And then E, this one's a little unique. This is more advanced stuff. But E, what was I feeling when society was telling me to go to college and get a degree?
Expectations, emotions.
Emotions. Perfect. Yeah, see, Joe, we align. You're talking stuff I like. So emotions, right? Emotions. Do you feel aligned with the path you're on? Right? Guys, we don't get taught this stuff, right? We got to kind of learn it, right? But no one was ever telling me like, hey, if you don't feel aligned, you should kind of look for a different direction. It was like, no, this is the path, you stay on the path. But like emotionally, I wasn't invested, right? Just disregard that. The next E. Effort and, yes. Yeah. You actually hit it on the nail. Yeah. So it's energy. Right? When it comes to building your wealth, you need energy to build your wealth, right? You know the quote, health is wealth. It's true. How are you going to try to build a business, or how are you going to try to go to a consulting session if you just don't have energy to do it, right? Everybody knows a person that needs coffee before they're like up for the day because they don't have energy, right? So energy. And the last 3 things are very unique. So R. What is a personal resource that starts with R?
Rest.
Relationship.
Yeah.
Relationship.
That goes with,
Yeah.
boom, bingo, relationships. So relationships, how does that correlate to like growing your wealth? Well, I'll give a case in point. That's my accountant right there. If I didn't have a relationship with her, she wouldn't show me the best way to save taxes legally, you know? But it's true, legally, right? And then like the whole, like you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with, right? Do your relationships bring you up and get you closer to wealth, or do they bring you down, right?
Show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Your network is your network.
Bingo. Perfect. And then the other R, so you read 48 Laws of Power, so you might know this one. So the other R is, I'll just say it, it's reputation. So a lot of people don't know that their reputation correlates to building wealth. So for example, I'll do a little bit later, but because I already do it. I already have it on my slides. But reputation, right? Nobody wants to do business if somebody knows like, oh, they're a scammer, or like you don't want to do business with them, right?
Yep.
So the last S, and then we'll go on to like really practical stuff. And I want you guys to take pictures or just really ponder on this, because this is what I did to change my life, right? S is, I've been saying it earlier, this is a resource.
Self-awareness.
I like that.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, you do have to sacrifice, that is true. But it's skills, right? Your skills are a very useful resource. So your skills, and again, I learned that from my boy Les, right? Skills pay the bills. Perfect. Now audit your personal resources. So D, what is it? You guys can recall it? Define, cool. The next one is audit. So what do you audit? You audit your time, you audit your attention, you audit your money, you audit your energy, you audit your emotions, your reputation, your relationship, and your skills. And I'll get into some questions that are very useful actually right now. So how was I able to grow my wealth? All my time, attention, money, energy, emotion, reputation, and relationships I had were all allocated to what I defined as wealth. Everything that wasn't circled. So example, everything that wasn't this. And again, at like 2016 when I was 19, I wanted to like buy my parents a house. I wanted to like buy properties in Philippines. But to me at the time, I needed to hit this. And what wealth looked like to me was getting skills and acquiring as much skills as possible. So I started here, and then guess what? This is the reason why I brought up the one thing. What's the one thing you could do that makes everything easier or unnecessary? This is the fact that I really focused on the skills that all of this ended up getting crossed out.
Yep.
So prioritization, excuse me. So here's some questions to ponder on. Time. We'll break it down one by one. Time. How much time am I actively dedicating to my wealth goals each day? Where am I spending that time? That can be redirected towards my definition of wealth. Like, it's really interesting. It's really interesting when people say like they want to do something, like they want to get in shape, yet they never put any time into getting in shape.
What's their excuse?
Right? I don't have time. Have you ever audited before? Where's your time actually going? And I'll speak for the guys. I can't speak for the girls. But I'll tell you what, us guys, we spend a lot of time in the bathroom, more than we need to, right? You can allocate the time in the bathroom towards going to the gym, right? I'm just being honest.
Just gonna look at memes the whole time.
The next one is attention. So how much attention am I truly giving to my wealth goals versus daily distractions? What could I stop focusing on to free up attention for what matters the most? Is my focus constantly aligned with my vision of wealth, or am I sidetracked? So for example, my attention, instead of going into like building wealth and like skill building, my attention was getting split into college. And like knowing my story, is college my definition of wealth? No, it's not. So why is my attention being divided there? It doesn't make sense.
That's what you was told.
That's what I was told. So attention. The next thing is money. So how much money am I actively putting towards my top wealth building goal each month? What expenses could I redirect better to support my financial growth? Is my spending aligned with my wealth goals, or am I prioritizing comfort over growth? So this is an interesting one because I'm still young. I have a lot of friends that say they want a better life. And I think they do. But when I'm talking to them and I'm like, oh yeah, what do you have going on? They're like, oh, I'm going to Coachella.
You're spending money.
Where are you spending your money? Oh, I don't got money, but you got fresh new J's.
Yeah.
I don't got money.
Priorities is messed up.
Right? What do you mean you don't got money? You do have money. This is getting allocated to just BS.
Yep.
Right? I'm watching my language because there's kids. So, next thing is energy. What activities or people drain my energy and pull me away from my goals? You ever hang out with somebody and you just feel tired after hanging out with them?
Yeah.
You're just like, damn,
Yeah, drain.
I gotta go take a nap. Right? Energy. A lot of the people I was spending like college with, I was like, bro, I don't care about your toxic relationship for the 5th time, you know? Like, I need my energy back. How can I manage my energy better to stay in a productive towards building wealth? Am I taking care physically and mental energy to sustain my wealth building efforts? So again, I think energy is important. Health is wealth, right? Not too long ago, 2022, I hurt my lower back. And I'll tell you what, I already made money at this point. And I'll tell you, nothing mattered more to me than being able to just stand up without back pain. I was like, I don't care how much money how much money I got in my bank account or portfolios if I can't even walk to the bathroom without a walker, right? Health is wealth. Energy. Next thing is emotions. So again, am I truly pursuing a path that aligns with me, or was I influenced by others? So reality, society's going to tell you to do one thing, but you're going to look at reality and you're going to just be like, is this what I want, right? When I think about my current path, do I feel motivated, or do I feel stressed, or do I feel frustrated, right? When I was going to college, all I felt was stress, all I felt was frustration, all I felt was like, I don't want to be here. This is a bad place, right? But everybody's telling me to go to a bad place every day, and this is what I think I should do. But emotionally, I wasn't invested. And then here's the thing about reputation, so I'll bring it back to reputation. So what impression do I leave on others, and does it open doors or limits opportunities for building wealth? But this is actually really important. 48 laws of power, you only have one reputation, guard it with your life. So reputation. So when it comes to you, right, I believe you have a good reputation. That's why there's people here today. Do we all agree? Yes?
Yes.
Yes? You have a good reputation, Justin? Look, they validated it. Perfect. Cool. So one thing about reputation, quick story. I was blessed with the opportunities to get mentored by people 20 years older, 30 years older from me. And the reason being is because I did one thing very well, is when they gave me advice or they gave me suggestions like, hey, I think you should do this, you should do that. God gave you 2 ears and one mouth. I shut up and I listened to what they said, and guess what? I did what they did. And then so what happens when I come back saying, hey, I implemented everything you told me? Are they going to want to help me more, or they're going to want to help me less? More. They wanted to help me more. And then so that's how I win a lot of mentors over, because I stand on the shoulders of giants. Like the reason why I'm standing here today and I have a level of success is because I'm listening to people just much older than I am. They already created the path. All I got to do is just walk it, right? It's all like common sense, right?
They laid the foundation.
Right? I just got to walk it, right? Dad. Okay. How could I improve my reputation to attract more meaningful connection opportunities? Is my reputation aligned with the type of wealth building I want to achieve? And the last thing is, second to last, relationships. Which relationships truly support my financial and personal growth, and which ones don't? So quick thing about this. When I went on this journey, actually, let me see. Who lost friends when you started working on yourself? Lost a lot of friends. See?
They weren't real friends.
Perfect. Exactly. You really weren't real friends.
It was seasonal friends.
Seasonal friends. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, are they building you up, or are they tearing you down, or are they... Yeah. Relationships. You are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And I'll tell you, once I started hanging out with people like him, like Justin, right? People like Natalie, my life started to improve again. You are the average of the people you hang out with. Who in my life aligns with my goals, and how can I strengthen those connections? Who are the key people whose advice and support I value, and how can I invest more time with them? So I was like in student mode, and I'm still in student mode. I'm not an expert. I'm not a coach. I'm not none of that. I'm just a student of the game, right? And I just share things that are useful to me. So who are the key people and advice, support I value, and how I can invest more time with them? The last one is skills. What skills do I currently have that directly support my wealth goals, and how can I leverage them more, right? What one skill, if improved or acquired, would make the biggest impact on my financial goal? And then also, am I regular investing time to build skills that align with my definition of wealth, harmony, neglecting, skill, love, right? So first step towards self-improvement, which is growing wealth, which is the topic, is self-awareness. So if there's a gift I can give everybody today, it's the gift of clarity. The only way you guys can achieve clarity, the way I achieve clarity, is asking myself questions, right? Only you really know what you want in life, right? But you have to actually sit down and look in the mirror, something I do very often, and say like, is this what I want, or is somebody telling me I want this thing, right? Am I pursuing this path, or again, is people telling me this is the path to go, right? So the next step is the last D in D.A.D. And I know time is short, so I'll wrap it up. The next step is the last D in D.A.D. Anybody have any guesses?
Discipline?
Close.
Dedication?
Yeah, it aligns with it, yeah.
Determined?
Close. We'll do 2 more. This is not a classroom. There's no right or wrong answers, by the way, right? Keep relaxed. So, D. Once you define wealth, once you audit your resources, your time, attention, all that stuff.
Do.
Yeah, no, it is do, but it's decisions. right? Where you have to define, then you have to audit, and then you have to make constant decisions every single day. Because every day you're making decisions. You and only you are responsible for your life choices and decisions, and your decisions decides your destiny. You only need to ask yourself 2 questions when it comes to making decisions, right? Once we know where we want to go, and now we know where we're at with our current resources, there's really 2 questions you need to ask yourself. Because I know I gave you a lot of questions earlier, but you just really need to ask these 2 and make it very simple. Does this get me closer to what I want? Does this get me further away from what I want? Right? Does me driving straight get me closer? Or does me driving right, going back to college, give me what I want? It's going straight. Going to college actually takes me further away. Right? So let's recap. You have a question.
Go ahead. Oh, I have a series of questions.
Oh, perfect.
So how long, when you mentioned that you were going to college and then you started to get confused, so you started buying books for self-awareness and self-improvement. So how long were you doing that before you made that decision to see Les Brown speak at Sacramento State?
Good question. Yeah, so timelines, it's a little, because all my time was spent into learning, so like I wasn't like recalling the time, but it's very short. It was very, very short because, again, common sense isn't commonly practiced. Like, if this is what these giants that have the life I want, life stuff that I admire, millions of dollars, like providing for their family, having financial freedom, all that stuff, and they're telling me to read books, the dumbest thing I could do is not listen to them, right? So it's immediate. Like I implement immediately. That's just something that I've really, like, I'm more of a natural inclination, because especially if they did something I wanted to do, why would I procrastinate on that?
So would you say that you were already building momentum, and when you started that, all these synchronicities, we call it, started happening? Like Reggie said, hey, come out to the Les Brown, and then you made that was a pivotal time where you're like, I'm gonna go. Did you cut class that day?
Yeah.
I wanted to know the psychology, because I noticed there's a common thread of successful people. That there's a pivotal time where they make this moment and it changes their life forever. So that was a time where you're like, I'm gonna cut college. So you stepped out of this cookie cutter, you went against societal expectations in that moment, and you went to Sacramento State. And then from there on is how you ended up today in front of me talking.
Yeah.
So can you go deeper, like that decision? Because there's people with blockages where they're still scared, or this conformity, deconditioning from societal expectations.
Yeah.
How can they do that? That's like deep inner work.
Yeah.
Which you were able to surpass and make that decision, and then the path was pretty much laid out for you.
Yeah, so this is a whole other talk. Go ahead. I'll do a quick one on this. But I'll Joe. Go ahead. All right, cool. So there's 2 things. I'll do the whiteboard, because this is, again, years of learning, y'all, you know? So the
27 years old.
So the first thing is, so I believe in a God, I believe in a higher power, right? I believe in spirituality. And one thing that God blessed us with is called RAS. Has anybody heard of it?
Particular activation.
No, that's it. Yeah, reticular activation system. So the beauty of this gift is, once you're aware of things, again, attention, you start to see it. Anybody ever bought a car and then started seeing all those cars around?
Yeah.
Right? You're like, man, I bought a Honda Civic. How the hell does everybody have a Honda Civic, right? It is because we prime our brains, and our brain gets what we look for. So I was looking for wealth. So guess what? My attention, it started to show things that was clearly wealth-building things. And then so I just followed that path, right? So the first thing, this is the reason why I say attention is so important, is because where attention goes, also energy flows, right? So if you define what you want, your attention goes towards it, you'll start to see things that align with your path to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. So the next thing, and this, again, if you want, so here's the book. It's called Limitless by Jim Quick. It's a really, really great book. This is about deeper things, like breaking beliefs, because that's really what we're talking about. So when it comes to living a limitless life, this is a framework that he created. So it's 3 circles. So in order to have a limitless life, the first one is mindset. That's one of the circles. The next one is motivation. And then the next one is methods, right? First, you need to have the methods to do something. So for example, like you want to have like alternative investment, right? You need to know the methods to go there. So for example, Justin and his team, he was laying out cash, like life insurance, there's real estate, like there's so many options, right? So there's different methods for everything. This one's motivation. So it's like your why. Like, why do you want to do this, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. And the last one is mindset. So this is the deep stuff that you're talking about. So I think that at a young age, because I grew up poor all my life, right? Like I grew up and I started to realize there's like big lifestyle differences between me and my friends. Like when I come back from summer, they got new J's, they got new clothes. I got hand-me-downs from my older kuyas, you know? They're talking about vacation, they're talking about Benejanas they ate at. I'm just like, man, I never ate there, right? And I started to notice discrepancies. But what I'm very, because it ends up like your struggles ends up becoming your story, right? So one thing I'm very happy is that did happen, because those were like very big character defining moments for me, because I started to realize, oh, those things don't really matter, right? At all. But also when it comes to mindset, there's things that we want to break, right? So this is, again, this is a whole book. I'll wrap up my presentation, but this is a whole ass book. Oh, excuse me. This is a whole book. So this is where we want. So let's say this is what we define as wealth, right? First, you're going to need the mindset, so that's your head, right? And then you're going to need to be the motivation, so that's your heart. And the last thing is you need your method, so that's your hands, right? And if you implement all these 3 M's, just like, so there's DAD, there's the 3 M's, right? Then you'll live a limitless life. But it comes to me breaking my mindset. When I was younger, one thing that I used to do a lot, because I was poor, I listened to a lot of motivational tapes. That's how I learned about Les Brown, right? If anybody heard this one? If you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. That was like, man, that was like my morning playlist. That was like my Bible. Yeah. Yeah. So mindset, it's a never-ending thing, right? There's going to be a lot of BS that holds you down. But also, just look at your resources. Who are you giving time to that's like saying you can't do this? Because I'll tell you what, like, I love my family, but the times where I was really working on myself, I love them from afar. I love them from afar. And it's because I know that they're going to be like, why aren't you going to classes? Right? And it's like, I don't need that input in my life. So it's all about resources, right? Where is your resources going? And then again, environment, right? Is like, I hang out with people that encourage me, saying like, you could do it. You got this. Like earlier in this presentation, I'll tell you what, I got a solid circle. I was talking to Natalie and Joe, and I was like, hey man, I'm kind of nervous speaking on stage. I haven't done this in a while, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, you got this. Like, just be you, just be yourself, right? Those are the people I have in my corner. Those are my real friends, right? So it's a big topic to try to like condense like everything I learned in like, the short time I have. But we'll do a little recap between both, which is D.A.D. What does D stand for? Define. Audit. Decisions.
Yeah.
Perfect. Decide. Decisions. Perfect. And then so this is a little bonus, limitless. Oh, and I do have a bonus for everybody here as well. Because again, it's a lot to try to cover how I grew my wealth. Because of years of knowledge. But the last thing is going to be 5 recommended books that I have. They're like, out of the hundreds of books that I read, these are my top 5. Yep. So, Bumper is by Nick Peterson. He's actually a personal mentor of mine. Rigging the Game by Dan Nicholson, another personal mentor of mine. Yep, Psychology of Money, that's a solid one. The Road Less Stupid, the Almanac of Val Ravikant. Right? Yeah, this is my favorite, one of my favorite quotes. Do you guys know the key to getting rich? So I was reading the book, and I was like, this makes so much sense. It said, the key to getting rich is to do less dumb shiz. That's it. And in order to do less dumb shiz, you need to think, right? Sometimes it's not a matter of doing more, it's a matter of just taking a step back and just thinking, right? So, to recap, D.A.D, define wealth, because when you define your wealth, you know exactly where you want to go, and only you know that. The second thing to grow in your wealth is you want to audit your resources. All your resources should be deployed into getting what you want, which is what you define And the last thing is making every single decision to get you closer to what you want. Thank you.
All right.